Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We are social creatures. We're all in relationships. We thrive to be connected to people in all different ways, whether it's friendships, intimate relationships, your work relationships. We're going to dig into that today, and specifically relationship codependency. Might have heard the term. You might be part of that and not even realize what's going on there in your relationship, depending on somebody else. And she is someone that helps people all the time as an amazing life coach with relationships and just navigating life in general. Her business is called Blooming Jasmine, and she is Jasmine Rodarte, and she's back with us. Welcome. How you doing?
Hey, Steve. Doing great. It is a beautiful summer day here in New Mexico, and I was able to spend a lot of time this morning with my animals, being active outside before the heat set in. So I'm great. How are you?
Guilty. I'm guilty because I did not spend enough time with my dog today, and I feel bad. And I'm probably going to go home, and he's going to leave me a little something to tell me that, yeah, you should have walked me a little bit longer. But I need to realize that it's not just about him. It's me, because I'm getting in nature. I feel grounded. I'm able to think, maybe meditate as I'm walking a little bit. So it's tough to just say, stop life and just walk with your dog or animal, whatever it might be. I got to get into that mode. I think I speak for a lot of people. Do you hear that from people that you work with and in your circles?
Absolutely. It can be hard to carve out the time initially, especially if it isn't part of your, everyday routine. But I think it is really important to take that time to pause and connect not only with your animal, but with your surroundings, with your thoughts as well.
Yeah, with yourself. Yeah. When it comes to relationships, focusing today on codependency, what does that mean? What does that look like to you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I offer coaching services specific to adults who are struggling with their codependent relationships. So we work to cultivate more self-reliance in their lives. So my clients are primarily struggling with low self-worth, fears about being alone, and these limiting beliefs have kept them trapped in undesirable relationships. So together we work towards restoring their sense of self, their interests, their values, and their ability to navigate areas of their lives more independently.
It's a great point, because I feel a lot of people stay in relationships because they think they need that person. And maybe they do in some regards. Maybe it's financial, but maybe it's also what you talk about, the limiting beliefs, where they think they're not good enough. I'll never find somebody else. I I don't have confidence in myself, and I'm not strong enough to leave because I can't rebuild my life. And it could be toxic relationships. And you're thinking, I can't do this again. How am I going to find life again and be happy again? I get it. Trust me, personally. We have limiting beliefs, and it goes back to our childhood, right?
Absolutely. Typically, the relationships that were modeled to us in childhood, we tend to, repeat those patterns, and we tend to seek out the relationships that are familiar to us from a young age. So most of us have known someone in a codependent relationship, or people like myself have firsthand experiences being in them, and they can be really tricky to navigate. There's a lot of layers there. But for anyone who isn't super familiar with codependency, typically this kind of relationship consists of two individuals who overly depend on one another for happiness and completion, as they often have little to no self-worth or value outside of their dysfunctional dynamic. So think about, a ball and chain here, as the partners have either intentionally or unintentionally used manipulation tactics to keep one another enmeshed. So when that happens, neither person has the room to grow as an individual, and therefore the relationship becomes at best stagnant. But you're right, Steve. A lot of these relationships become toxic. They can be characterized by poor boundaries, neediness, fears of abandonment and rejection.
Yeah.
So when we're feeling that way, we're not really choosing partners or situations that are fueling our greatest good.
And if you're somebody in a relationship and you think I can't see it any other way, you probably have, I don't mean this in a bad way, low self-worth, or you're not good enough. Somewhere along the line when you were a kid, somebody said that in some certain words, and it stuck with you. And then, and also fear of abandonment. So it could have been, let's say your parents got divorced, could be right there. Like you're afraid to be alone again because you may have felt alone, or maybe one parent left and then there was abandonment there. And again, it goes back to your childhood. So a lot of people deal with it in different ways. Fortunately, when they figure it out, could be hypnotherapy, could be other therapies, life coaching. How do you get back to the beginning, the source of those limiting beliefs? How do you help somebody figure that out?
That's a good question. And I think that specifically for coaching, we needn't necessarily go back to the beginning to set goals to work on what the issue is now. I can speak for my own business and my own experiences with codependency. And I know that in helping people identify what their values are outside of the relationship. For example, do you say that you value friendship, but you're ignoring all of your friends' phone calls because you just feel like you need to take care of your partner all day? So we find what their values are and then ways to live a life in line with those values that are separate from the relationship. So in doing this, we're really gaining more resources internally and externally, more supports, and confidence in their abilities to do things outside of their comfort zone. And I think that's really I don't want to say the fix to codependency, but that is how we begin to heal, is by finding ways to nourish different parts of your character, your personality, your interests outside of the bounds of this relationship.
It gets challenging too when the other person in the relationship realizes that their partner feels that they can't live alone, and all of that. Then they prey on it. They react to it. Somebody said narcissism. I think I heard that. Yeah, all of that stuff comes out in the relationship, and then it just makes it even harder. And I'm not saying leave a relationship with these things in place, right? You can sometimes work through them.
You absolutely can. And this is where boundaries are very important. And, typically the client has an understanding as to how their partner is going to react when they start making some of these empowering changes for themselves. So we can kind of anticipate, okay, you're going to start doing this, but your partner is probably going to react in this way. So what is a boundary that you can maintain so that you're protecting yourself? And as you said, I'm not saying leave a relationship. That's really not my decision to make for anyone. Some clients that see me do end up spreading their wings and leaving a broken relationship, and others are able to, repair things by gaining more tools with emotional regulation and boundary setting, and working on some of these patterns that have got them into, a sticky situation, like being a caretaker and people pleasing. So
people pleasing, there you go. And that's where the boundaries come up. Yes. And let's go back. Why are people pleasers? Probably because of a limiting belief.
we all want to be loved. We
Yep.
all want someone to accept us. And so if
Yeah.
we think that we can bend over backwards to make this person's dreams come true and to make them realize how spectacular we are, then that's going to solve all of our problems, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Not.
Wrong.
Tell us about your background, how you got to where you are today as a life coach.
Absolutely. So we can take it back to the beginning. I grew up in Virginia. My upbringing wasn't exactly easy. I was an only child to a single mom with very little money. So from day one, there was a constant gnawing of scarcity and limitations. And I never had exposure to healthy relationships being role modeled to me. So naturally, I formed unhealthy attachments. And from a young age, I just remember feeling this pervasive loneliness and craving to jump out of my skin. I needed someone to save me from myself. So, these core beliefs really contributed to years of battling with mental health, with toxic and abusive relationships, substance abuse, and so forth. It was just a very drama-filled life of fighting and feeling weighed down by my habits and the partners that I kept. But at the risk of sounding cliche, this all of the adverse experiences I had, really allowed me to be where I am now. I've been able to use these experiences to connect with others in positive ways and make a career out of doing so. So, I ended up going through university, studying human services and psychology, and got into social work. I've been in social work as well for about 10 years now. I ended up packing up all my stuff in Virginia, taking my dog and moving out west, and it was the best thing I've ever done for myself.
Wow.
Yeah, I was able to create, new circles of support and inspiration and just leave those negative influences behind. Not fully, because, pieces of our past will always resurface from time to time, and some of it is a constant work in progress, but
Sure.
Life has shifted dramatically, and I couldn't be more pleased with where I am now. I have a loving husband. We have a developing homestead here in New Mexico. We have goats, chickens, dogs, cat, and it's a very easygoing, fulfilling life now.
How did you make the decision to head west? Where did that come from?
I had a couple of friends who had previously lived in Arizona, and for something about the Southwest always called to me, even though I had never been there before. And I decided, I need sunshine, I need change, I need to get as far away from, some of these negative people and surroundings as possible. So I just kind of took a chance. I found someone on Craigslist who lived in Tucson and moved in with her. We ended up becoming great friends.
Wow.
And yeah, just the stars aligned and hard work paid off.
I give you a lot of credit for just up and going. And on my radar right now is a getaway solo. I've never done it. Yeah, I've gotten on a plane and went somewhere and then met somebody else, for work or whatever. But I've never just like, I'm just going somewhere and I'm going to spend a week and that's it. And I have a friend right now who is doing it. Ended a relationship. I was dating, and he is in Portugal right now. And, on social, seeing all the pictures, and he's just doing his thing. And he was supposed to go with the person he was in the relationship with, and it just didn't work out. And he just did his thing. And that's next on my list. And it's kind of high up on the next, because I think for me, I need to do that. It's calling. Like you ever get that like inside, and maybe when you decided to head out west, something inside of you said, you got to do this. You're doing it for you. You're doing it for your life, whatever it might be. Go with what's in, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Follow that calling. And not to say that it'll always be easy. You know, a lot of these adventures or risks come with discomfort, but we have to push through the discomfort to grow from it and build confidence through our competence. So yeah, I am a strong advocate for solo travel. That's another thing that I believe has really helped me develop too. Traveling the world, mostly alone, mostly on a backpacker's budget.
Cool.
So
Yeah. Yeah. You
go
know
do
what?
it, Steve. Get out
It
there.
and it just shows you to yourself that, yeah, I can do that. All right. I can throw me into any situation, and a group of people I don't even know them, and I'll start a conversation, and then I'll learn things and then move forward. I have a friend that actually, we grew up together, high school, and he one day said, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. He was a computer programmer, IT guy, doing really well in New York City. He's like, yeah, I'm done. Goes online. This is about 12 years ago. Found a farmhouse in Maine. He lived in New York, right? Didn't even see it. Just bought it. And he paid 125,000 for it, like a steal. It's like on a farm, 90 acres. He just went. And he and his wife went, and she was making jewelry in their shed in the backyard. And they had a kiln, so they fired the jewelry, pretty stuff, glass and everything. And she started doing it there. And that's how they supported themselves. And then he got some other jobs, and then sold his house here, New York. And that was it. And he's one of those people, I think, a lot like you, where pick them up and drop them anywhere and they'll figure it out. So I'm not so much that way. I'm getting closer to that. I used to be worry about everything. I'm like, I don't worry about anything anymore. It's like, what's the point? What I go by now is nothing surprises me. And it doesn't, because when it pops up, situations, speed bumps, you go over them and you figure it out. But for anybody that's trying to do that, you need to go through it to get to the next level, to build confidence. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. It's like a snowball down the hill. I feel once you start doing it, it's like, yeah, I got this. I could do this. Oh, I didn't know I could do that. I know that, I had that in me. And I'm sure you found that out yourself, just leaving Virginia and going out west.
Absolutely. And I think there's a lot of, so change is the only constant that we have in life. And there's only
and the biggest fear we have of.
Yes. And so we spend so much time strategizing and worrying and mentally trying to avoid change or to bypass it somehow. But we really got to just dive in. And that's the only way to really become adaptable, resilient.
Yep. So when you work with somebody, let's say we're talking about relationships. Let's say somebody's going through challenging relationship. They are pretty sure they're codependent. And I'm going to side note here. I think a lot of people don't realize that they are. And that's the biggest issue there. They don't, or they kind of know, but they don't want to admit it to themselves. If they're starting to go through that or just having changes or challenges with relationships, and they reach out to you on a coaching level, how does the process work?
So the process begins by an initial call. These are free of charge. And we gather what they would like to see change in the next 90 days. We keep it client-centered. So I want to know what's working well for you and what isn't working well. They know what services I offer, and we talk about their current relationship, what their habits are, their responses are, and we really take it from there. So for example, I'm offering 2 90-day programs right now. And the first one, I'll start there, is called Untangled. And so that is removing the enmeshment from another person, which we've been talking about. And so the people who join the Untangled program, they've been habitually held back from experiences and personal advancement due to their relationship. And they're staying in this unfulfilling relationship due to their fear of being alone. So we work to start with things that they feel that they've been missing out on because of their fear, and we go from there. So for example, I had a client who she felt a lot of fear about really doing anything in public on her own. Her spouse was very discouraging about her doing anything outside of the home, but he didn't care to engage in anything with her. So this woman, she felt very self-conscious about her weight, and she really wanted to be exercising independently. She was terrified to go on walks alone. How would people think of her? What are they going to say? How is she going to do this by herself without her husband there? So we started by having our sessions. She just used her earbuds and went for a walk while I was coaching her through it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm really trying to meet people where they're at. And she saw tremendous progress. After 90 days, her stress was reduced. She lost some weight. She felt more confident to keep this up on her own 5 days a week. So that's just one of the goals we worked on.
That's super cool. Like just the fact that she was afraid, just to even just be outside. It's almost like somebody's in your ear whispering, "You got this. Don't worry about it." Somebody's looking at you. They're not looking at you. And my daughter has challenges too. And I tell her that all the time. She lives with me. And I'm like, you think people are looking at you? They don't care. And I try to echo this, and I mean this for anybody. What would you say to yourself, your younger self? And I know I would say right away, why did I worry about what people thought? Why did I do that? And I got bullied, and yeah, all of that. Why did I even care? What a waste. It's tough when you're in it, but if you look back, it's like, why did I do that? There are reasons, limiting beliefs and everything. Your younger self, she's right in front of you. What would you tell her?
I would tell her that the struggle is worth honoring, not to try to escape the struggle. Lean into it with an open curiosity and a willingness to learn. And it's going to get better. I thought when I was younger, this is it. Like, this is permanently messed up and it's not going to get better. Never would I have imagined that I would be here where I am, knowing who I know, like in all of these fulfilling, healthy relationships.
And even if you look back, like we're always in a rush to get it done. Like when you say, 3 months, it takes time to change habits, to rewire your brain. I look back 6 months ago and I say to myself, wow, a lot went on in 6 months. And you don't think it right away. But when you start looking at it, like, man, you did this, you did this. It's different. Like I look a year ago. I was different a year ago. I was doing different things, around people and just relationships, and people have left, don't serve anymore. But I was mindful to say, time to move on from them. And so it's just an evolution. I totally agree with you. All the CRAP that you put up with in your past, it's there for a reason. You needed that to get to here, which gets you to here, and on and on and on. But we need to realize that. And sometimes we just want to play the victim. Or we're not strong enough to pick up the phone or go online and reach for help from you. How do we find you? What's your website?
Yeah, so my website is bloomingjasmine.org. I can also be emailed at wellness@bloomingjasmine.org.
And you said before, a free consult. So if anybody just wants to feel out the relationship, and that's what it is, it's a relationship. So not all relationships work for everybody. So it's got to be a good fit for you and somebody else. But start the process, change your life. And don't be codependent. Easier said than done. Be dependent on one person, and that's yourself, because you'll always have you. And my mom always said that. And I was like, I never got it until I got it.
Yeah, we are our most attractive and healthy when we're taking care of us. So
100%. That's a whole other podcast.
Right.
Really,
that one for next time.
We could spend 30 minutes on that alone. Jasmine, great talking with you. I love your energy and your vibe. Like, it is like so way up there. and your passion, and you're doing what you should be doing. It just comes through.
Thank you so much, Steve. I appreciate your time, and I'm so excited to see who reaches out and how I can help. So,
Yep. All right. All the best to you, and thanks again.
yeah, take care, Steve.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.